All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Jack and Kaylin as always. And because it is a certain week of the year, we had to have the guy that probably pisses off the most Spartan fans of any Twitter account on out there. Scott Bell. Scott, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. I enjoy what you guys do, and I'll try and get that line on my resume because I wear that like a badge of honor. So
I feel like we got to start off hot. What's the best interaction you've had with a Spartan fan, or we could say even a Buckeye fan, because you troll both very, very well.
yeah, well, the thing with Ohio, like I don't hate Michigan State more than Ohio State. It's just there's so much low hanging fruit from Michigan State. I would love to be able to go after Ohio State a lot, but like trust me, I'm squeezing every little bit out of 42-27 as I can. But Michigan State's just kind of the more frequent target because of it, they're kind of ripe for the picking with the low hanging fruit. So I am an equal opportunity hater, and I would love to make it more 50-50, but we got to do a little better in November to make that happen. Best interaction.
Oh yeah.
Probably pre Twitter. I was the sports editor of the Michigan Daily, the student paper in Ann Arbor, and each year before the Daily State News game that I think a lot of people are familiar with, where the two student papers play against. One person from each sports department writes a column in the other school's paper. So my junior and senior year, I went pretty hard at the whole school, and I had someone show up at a tailgate in Ann Arbor for the game. I guess it was the 06 or 07 game. I'm ancient, so one of those years. But they showed up with a copy of the column in their hand. They had no idea I was going to be at the tailgate that I was, and they were like looking for Scott Bell, and they're like, for this guy, and I got a bunch of my frat brothers too, and that was like. That was like pre-Twitter and kind of really trying to make an art form out of poking the bear, and I feel like it was like getting to be a bad guy at like a wrestling event, and that was fun.
That is incredible. Oh my
You're just
God.
trying to figure out your top 8 on MySpace, and these guys are just coming at you, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was excited about color TV happening, and
I mean, that talk about the origin story. Like that's got to be it. Where I mean, you had to have known, like, all right, I think I have something here, right? Like that's. Or was it just like completely organic that you were just like, all right, well, we're just gonna keep going. These thoughts keep coming to my brain. Let's keep rolling with it.
yeah, it's fun. I've always been enamored with college sports, and I feel a lot more investment in college sports than like watching Detroit sports growing up. And I mean, like right around that time, the Pistons were actually good, the Tigers were good. Like now, it's more socially acceptable to just not care about a lot of the pro teams. But like, I just feel there's just a lot more passion and like ownership of a college of college sports, whether you're attending there, but you also like people can grow up there and not go to Michigan, and like that fandom's completely normal. Like, hey, I was a Michigan fan before I went to Michigan. Like I there are familial ties or things like that. So I've always liked the passion around the college game, and I feel like trash talk and banter and stuff just sort of it's fun. Like part of Michigan State week, like probably the majority of its enjoyment is like the build up and just like talking noise, and like it's not getting overly personal or like getting angry or stuff, but you're just like it's fun. And if someone dunks on Michigan and it's good, like I'll tip my hat to them and I'll try and one up it. And that's just it's fun, and that's why college football is so great, because it's more than just those 3 hours on a Saturday. You have the build up to it, you have the aftermath to it, and all that good stuff.
Is it for you like the I feel like the hate from the Spartan fans is kind of like how you said, if somebody's got a good tweet, like, towards Michigan where they're clowning on them, like you're like, I'll tip my hat. Do you think Spartan fans are more pissed off the fact that your tweets are funny and like they're good, that they're dissing them, or is it the fact that they actually dislike what you said in the tweet?
I would say both. It is nice, like, and not even like, it's cool if there's like a Michigan State fan that I like respect or we have good banter with, where he'll be like, hey, that was a good tweet. But like, it's almost like when they get super mad and like don't have a great comeback, like that's essentially their way of tipping their hat too. And you almost like that. You almost like that a little more. So I'll take joy and satisfaction in whatever reaction I can get. But I do have a special place in my heart for like the, okay, I don't really know what to say. Like, good job.
Yeah. Before we started recording, I said to Scott that I have a lot of Sparty fans that like they hate him so much because they're like, how is he so good at it? How does he twist it perfectly to, be great for Michigan every time? So I mean that's the reputation that you have, which is I'd say it's a pretty good crown to wear.
Well, I'd love to take all credit for it, but I think Michigan State gets a lot of credit too for giving us such great material.
Like that.
So.
Like what is like how, like he's just on it right away. He's always got some sort of way to sneak it in there. I love it. That's beautiful.
I will say, like, there isn't a team out there that, like, if you actually put it down on paper, right, like 10 out of 14 is what, they all say, which I understand, but it's cherry picking the exact amount of years that, that they want to. But like a team that has won 10 out of 14, like, how do they still have so much low hanging fruit? That's what's like an astonishing thing to me, is like they do it to themselves a lot.
Well, in many ways, like that's kind of like part of the low hanging fruit in itself. Like they're like they've won the last 2 years, and like that's great. Like you should talk noise about that. You've won that, but like 2 years ago they finished dead last in the Big Ten. Like no team was worse than Michigan State in 2020, but they're like the collective fan base that whole offseason was just like puffing their chest because they beat Michigan. So like it used to be a theoretical thing, like, hey, would you rather lose all your games but beat your rival, or would you rather like have a good season but lose to your rival? And people would be like, oh, Michigan State would probably rather like lose all their games but just beat Michigan, and like that was the joke. But it came to life. Really? Like 2020, like that is it. And it's like, so the fact that is like their fan base's mantra, like there's really no going back from it. And right. I'm painting in a broad brush, and there's not everyone that feels that way, but like it is like, it's so unique in the sense that like there aren't that many fan bases that truly despise another fan base that much. And I think a lot of that was really sort of like etched in there by Mark D'Antonio, and at the time they had that success and what he sort of instilled in there. I think that's just going to stay for the long haul. I don't remember the year, but there was a year where like if Michigan State could have won the Big Ten or a share of the Big Ten or got a trip to Indianapolis or something, as long as Michigan beat Ohio State. And they like asked Mark D'Antonio, like, will you cheer for Michigan? And he's like, no. And like, you can win the Big Ten if Michigan loses, but you'd rather your rival lose a game that will make your season like indisputably worse. Like, so that's like talking about origin, like that's like the origin of sort of where this has gone. And I just feel like it's so ingrained in there that's just kind of there, at least for the indefinite future.
Yeah. And I think back to 2021, right? Where, I was at Spartan Stadium for that game. It was a very tough walk back to the car for sure. But I looked all of my Spartan friends in the eyes, and they were, cloud 9 times 1,000, right? Because it was not only are you beating Michigan, but you're beating Michigan in like what to them at the time was like the road to winning the Big Ten, right? Like they thought for sure. And so now, like, then after the season, I just think that, like, they did everything they could. They beat Michigan, and Michigan still goes and beats Ohio State and wins the Big Ten. I think that's almost like worse than them losing that game, because they want to talk all that shit so much, but then at the end of the day, like, even beating Michigan still wasn't enough to hold them back from winning the Big Ten. They just, like, can't do anything about it.
Well, and I think that's really the thing, because if they're talking shit and it's going to affect Michigan fans, like, they know they have something. But
Right.
truly, like, in 2020, like, that loss bothered the hell out of me. And it's still an annoying loss to think about. But 2021, like, once Michigan got into November and it was clear that game did not matter, especially after what happens with Michigan beating Ohio State and going to the Big Ten championship. Nothing about last year's game bothers me. Like, it would have been great to run the table. It would have been great for Aiden Hutchinson to have another Heisman sort of tick with a defensive touchdown, and it's you would prefer to beat your rival, but like, this offseason, anytime a Michigan State fan is like sends me a picture of Paul Bunyan, like, I don't care. Like, Michigan won the Big Ten championship. Michigan went to the college football playoff. And I feel like that has to bother them so much, because 2020 trash talk, it worked, and it should have, because it's incredibly annoying that Michigan lost to that team. Last year, Michigan State, pretty good team. Wish Michigan would have won, but you know what? Michigan still was the best team in the Big Ten, and in that loss to Michigan State, in the grand scheme of things, truly did mean nothing.
Yeah,
that's what I love more than anything, is like they're already the second rival, right? You know, maybe 2A, 2B with Notre Dame. And they to make it so Michigan State can beat us, kind of like Roe, like you just said, and it's just so insignificant. Like, who cares? Like, oh yeah, we lost to State, but who cares? We beat our actual rival, won the Big Ten, and are going to the playoff. That's what I love.
Then there's no real rebuttal to either side.
Right.
So, like, Michigan State should be excited about their season last year. It's probably going to be the best season they have in a while, but they're still going to know that, like, the third place that they were celebrating so mightily is the same thing they were using to dunk on Michigan a handful of years ago, saying,
Right.
haha, Jim Harbaugh can only finish in third place. And that looks like their program ceiling for the indefinite future. And part of that's bad luck for being in a division with Michigan and Ohio State. But guess what? It was annoying that Jim Harbaugh's threshold was never winning a Big Ten title when Ohio State is on this, like, program best historical run. So Michigan went and got the job done, and let's see if Mel Tucker can do it. But I'm not feeling optimistic that that's going to happen.
Right.
All right.
When your entire program is like predicated on beating one other program, and you can't do that, right? When you finally reach that point where the other program is able to prevent you from beating them, where do you go from there, right? Like, so I mean,
what's your identity?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a great point. It's a great point. And let's talk about Mel Tucker for a second, because Tuck is Tuck coming? Tuck might have blew his load too early in my opinion. But
I don't know, man.
You know, I actually said this. So I said this first about Scott Frost. I have a couple Nebraska friends, and I said it about Scott Frost. Be careful about, like, the savior, quote unquote, coming to your school and you hyping them up, paying them a shit ton of money, and setting the standard way too high, right? Just be careful of that. And that's what Nebraska did that with Scott Frost. And obviously we know how that turned out. It kind of seems like the Mel Tucker situation is the exact situation, because Mark D'Antonio, unbelievable coach. There's really, as a Michigan fan, not much you can say. You know, I don't like him as a person because I think he's a dickhead, but, like, he did get the best of Michigan a lot of those years, even though I'll add this jab in. Jim Harbaugh did retire Mark D'Antonio. But
100%.
But I'll say this, like, he was able to get away with an 8-4 season every so often, right? Because he was not paid, as a top tier coach. And it's Michigan State, right? It's, the fact is that they're not going to be in the national media all the time, right? The same as a Michigan and Ohio State would. But my point is, you pay Mel Tucker Nick Saban money, and guess what? You can't go 8-4 anymore, let alone what is looking like this year is going to be. So now the standard is 10-2 or higher. And now what do you do when in year 3 you possibly go like 7-5?
And 7-5 is their ceiling. Like yeah. They beat Wisconsin, but let's pump the brakes a little bit there. Like I still, if I have a gun to my head, I'm guessing 5 or 6 wins for them. A healthy Jaden Reed's big, and them getting some of their pieces on defense is important. But I could see them playing Penn State in the season finale for the right to play in the Quick Lane Bowl, which I wish that wasn't on the Michigan Ohio State day, because that would be a appointment viewing for me with just a big old bag of popcorn. But
that would,
but yeah,
I would love like a Twitch live stream of you watching that game, because
I would love the opportunity to live stream that. But I if it's I think it's the same day as the game, and I'm a little tunnel vision for Michigan Ohio State on that day. But I completely agree though in terms of expectations. I feel like Michigan State for like the past decade, this whole chip on your shoulder mentality was developed, and they're like, all they did was yell like, look at us, like we're a big program, Now that they're shelling out big program money, there's big program expectations, and they're going to learn that if you have big program expectations and you don't live up to them, there's going to be consequences. And you can't say, hey, we want a Nick Saban, we want to pay someone Nick Saban money, when you're going to get like Jeff Brom productivity. Like it's just it's you pay someone that much guaranteed, and you're boxing yourself in, you're setting yourself up potentially for complacency. If I'm a coach and I'm guaranteed to be making $95 million a year, yeah, you don't have to necessarily worry about him flirting with LSU or USC the next time there's an opening. But you also have to worry about, hey, what's going to drive this guy? Right. You look at professional sports and people on contract years, and when you have to prove it to make your money, you're going to get them super dialed in. And this year, Mel Tucker got paid, and he's the guy that's dropping his Tuck coin release on the same day of their first day of practice. Like, is this a guy that's as driven to prove to get his team going forward as some of these other coaches in the Big Ten? And I'm not really seeing that right now.
I also think this about Tuck is Michigan State fans gave Michigan fans so much shit about Jim Harbaugh and us loving him and the whole, I'll wear it on my chest. We all thought like Jim Harbaugh getting, the whole like Jim Harbaugh getting off the plane thing, and like the signing of the stars, and like we definitely put him on a pedestal, right? Early on. And to be honest, I'll still say it to this day, and I think a lot of people are with me. Like, if that 2016 Michigan-Ohio State game goes differently, like the program is on a total different trajectory. So I think that's where like I validate the that type of thoughts about Jim Harbaugh coming to Michigan. But like they gave us so much shit for that for a long time, for the last 8 years now. And then they went and did the exact same thing about their coach after one 11-2 season. And so that's where I'm like, all right, you got to look in the mirror a little bit if you're an MSU fan and be like, hold on, am I that same person?
Yeah. And no offense, comparing to where Jim Harbaugh was when Michigan fans had that level of excitement around him, you're taking one of the most like statistically successful coaches in the history of the National Football League when there are other NFL teams that want him. You bring him back to your alma mater, and like year 2, you're an inch away from being in the playoff. I mean,
right.
That's a little different than, yes, 11-2. Like Michigan State had a great season last year. You look at them in conference, their statistical profile was not that much different than Nebraska, and Scott Frost got fired this year. Like Michigan State scored like 9 more points in conference play than they gave up last year, and Nebraska went 1-8, and they were like their point differential was like 3 points different than Michigan State's. Like Michigan State had a good year last year, but like not 95 million guaranteed contract. Good.
Right. An inch away to me where Michigan was in 2016 is a lot different than 49-0 at the half.
Yes, and having Michigan State or having Ohio State completely pull off the Dogs in the second half.
Yeah,
like
that truly could have been the hang 100 game. That truly could have.
Oh
been.
yeah,
yeah. I that's where I just laugh a little bit because of like I've just been given so much shit over the years about us loving Jim Harbaugh and like how up until up until 2021 it wasn't working out, blah blah blah. Like all that stuff. It just cracks me up because I watch my Sparty friends hang a Tuck Cummins flag in their fucking garage. Like I've never had a Harbaugh come in. Like I don't wear a Jim Harbaugh t-shirt. Like it's a little ironic to me. It's a little ironic.
I had a Rich Rod Cummins flag back in 2008, so I can't
hold on to that. That's a collector's item.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, I think the crap you're talking about, the crap from friends after you lose in 2016. I think that's another part of like the whole fandom experience. So like getting over the hump against Ohio State in 2021, winning the Big Ten, going to the CFP, like I think that felt differently last year than it would have in 2016. And it would have been like, I'm not complaining, or like 2016 would have been great. I would have liked to have been on the other side of that. But like, I think last season felt so special because you got over the hump. You lived through those ups and downs and the criticism and the nearly getting rid of Harbaugh the year before. I think just living through the roller coaster and the ups and downs really makes the highs better if you're truly kind of along for the ride the whole time.
Yeah, we had Brad Robbins on just last night, actually. I don't know when we're going to release these, probably at some point the week before the game. But yeah, so Brett, like we were talking about it, and we were talking about the Michigan-Ohio State game in 2021, and he was talking about how he walked out onto the field for that last touchdown for the extra point, right? And it was, obvious that we had the game won. And he just said he didn't like rush out there. He walked, very slowly and just took in the whole thing. And we talked about like how for him, he's a 6th-year senior, right? Which is crazy in its own right. But there's how much leading up to that moment for him to walk out there and beat Ohio State. Like, think about all the shit that he went through in every one of those years leading up to 2021. So I do agree with you. Like, not that I'm saying that we're the same as every player, as Brad Robbins, who's actually been in Schembechler and worked his ass off to get there. But like, there's a little piece of that fandom in me that's like, you know what? We went through some shit to get to 2021. We went through some shit for me to be in Indianapolis to take that confetti on its way down and celebrate a championship.
Absolutely. And it's like I think there's always like Michigan fans kind of being surprised why so many other schools in the Big Ten sort of circle Michigan as a rival, and people are like, oh, why does Illinois think of Michigan as a rival, or like why do these schools like hate Michigan? And it's like one of the rare times where like Michigan really is in that underdog role, and it's not like this manufactured thing. Like to lose as frequently as Michigan's lost to Ohio State, like it makes living through like the decade-long losing streaks on both end of 2011 was was obnoxious, but when you get over that hump, it's just like, okay, now I know what these schools like feel when they really are the underdog.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to. We should probably talk about this year's Michigan football team. I think there is a game coming up here soon. This team is absolutely rolling. I feel I wanted to ask
Absolute rolling, dude.
What's that?
Big time. What did you say?
What?
Did you say absolute rolling?
Absolutely rolling. Did I say absolute rolling?
You did. I liked it.
Sorry.
I like that one better.
Sorry. I wanted to ask your opinion on like the state of Michigan football, the where this program is at right now. And I actually had this conversation a little bit, like, 2018, we probably said the exact same thing, right, in like week 10 as we were right now, right, where we thought like, holy shit, this program is at like its peak, and then you lose to Ohio State, and then all of a sudden everything goes away. So that still can happen. But where we're at right now, 2 7-0 starts right consecutively for the first time in a long time. But what are your thoughts on the state of Michigan football?
I think the fact that you're stacking these two seasons right on top of each other is kind of a first. Like, okay, year one of Harbaugh, you had it's a transition year. It ended up being a pretty good first season, but it was a good season, not a great season. 2016 looked like it was a great season. 2017 was that weird year where, okay, maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. So like you're getting those buffer years in between really successful seasons. And then 2020 was just where everyone got through in flux. Like, yes, it's a COVID year. And I think as we get more separation from that, it looks like the true anomaly. But 2021 and 2022, like you said, the 2 7-0 starts. I think I saw a stat somewhere where Michigan has a better record than Bama over the last 2 years, which is pretty cool to see. But like, this is the first time I feel like last year everyone was like, this team is good, this could be a special year. But I feel like this year it's like, this program is good, I think this could be a special program. And in the back of people's heads, I think there's still a little worry about, okay, the recruiting momentum isn't there right now, and there's NIL and all that stuff. But I'm really trying to remove myself from that and just like enjoy the ride and the fact that Michigan's been able to do this 2 straight seasons, and the way they beat Ohio State last year and in the way they are winning games this year, it just looks like, okay, that wasn't a fluke. This is a program mentality. This is like something that they can replicate. And this is kind of where this program is now. So it was always kind of, when you think of tiers and in college football, your top tier, it's kind of your Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and maybe Clemson, depending on where they are there. But you look at all these advanced metrics now, and Michigan's really kind of looking like the peer of those other 4, and it kind of looks like a top 5 and then everybody else. And the fact that in just 2 years, Michigan's at least even put themselves in that conversation, I think is a testament to where this program is right now.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's definitely been very good on the front half of his tenure at Michigan, but depending on what happens at the end of this season, you could argue that he's taken them to elite status, right? I mean, are we kind of seeing the front half of almost like a Clemson, Dabo Swinney, like dynasty level, like transformation of the program, where Michigan starts to shift into this like perennial college football playoff kind of team?
Yes and no. I think in terms of like where the program floor is, like this, Jim Harbaugh has the program to a point right now where I feel like in the next handful of years, I really can't see this being a program that does worse than like 9-3. And the fact that that's where the program is now compared to where he inherited it, that's a huge step up and a sign of where they've been. The thing with Clemson is there's the Ohio State factor, and Clemson could be Clemson, because the ACC outside of Clemson was largely the Big Ten West, and Michigan every year is going to have to get over that Ohio State and slay that Ohio State dragon. And like I mentioned a little earlier, like the timing of everything, like you look at Ohio State in the last decade and you compare that to any other like 10-year stretch in their program, and Ohio State, this like very highly regarded program historically, like this is their peak. This is their longest, their extended stretch of excellence. So it's, I think in terms of the talent level and just the culture of the program, I think Michigan is kind of in that Clemson-esque situation internally, but from an opportunity to excel and to perennially get in the college football playoff, it's tougher sledding for Michigan still than where Clemson was and probably still is, because you've had a little bit of a hiccup with quarterback play last year, but Clemson's still looking relatively Clemson-like this year too.
Yeah, I don't think Clemson this year is even the they're not quite to the like 2018 Clemson team, but they're still going to win the ACC. So like I think if you put Michigan in Clemson's shoes in that ACC, like there's probably like 5 straight conference championships, honestly,
without question.
Yeah, so that's where like I don't know. I there's a lot of like back and forth about Jim Harbaugh and blah blah blah. Jim Harbaugh was not put in a like easy situation at Michigan. You know, you come off of like some of the worst teams in Michigan football history, although they had a ton of talent.
One of the best as well. Thanks to Rich Rod. Rod came, but he was gone by the time they came.
Yes. Yeah. He did
coming and going at the same time.
A lot of that. Yeah. But yeah, he did not, you know, it wasn't just like, he wasn't set up with like, you know, this perfect, it wasn't Ed Orgeron going into 2019 LSU, you know, let's say that. So, yeah, I think that, you know, I think that all in all, Jim Harbaugh's done a pretty damn good job, and his overall record states that. And, you know, I think the biggest piece for me is the changes after 2020, because normally Jim Harbaugh doesn't do that shit. Normally Jim Harbaugh says, I'm too good for this. I know what I'm doing. I don't have to look at myself. But somebody got to Jim Harbaugh and he looked in the mirror for the first time probably in his whole career and said, I need to change. I need to do something different. And that's where I like say that's where I'm like die hard, you know, ride or die with Jim Harbaugh, because I think he changed himself to change Michigan football. And that's why we're here, where we're at in the year of 2022.
And that's a sign of a great leader. And so many of these college football coaches they're all wired differently, because you have to basically be 50% sociopath to be a successful college football coach anyways. But to have that self-awareness, to basically humble yourself and say, hey, what I'm doing isn't good enough. I need to make this change. I need to consult here. I need to change this. Like, it takes a special leader to do that. And some coaches can do that. Some can't or won't even try. And I think it's very telling that Jim Harbaugh came here with a goal. He hadn't achieved it. So he took a step back, looked, said, okay, I need to change some things. And he changed some things. And you look at the coaching changes made in the last 2 off seasons, and find me someone with a better hit rate than what Harbaugh has done. I mean, 2 years ago, you overhauled 66% of that staff. You move people existing on the staff to other spots. You it had such a high likelihood of not working out, just because you can't find other examples of it happening, because so many coaches aren't bold enough to do something like that. And Harbaugh not only did it, but like the last two seasons coaching staffs have been the 2 best coaching staffs of the Harbaugh regime. And he deserves a ton of credit for taking some chances on some of the coaches that he brought in that some people were like, oh, that's not a sexy hire, or this guy is not going to be an incredible recruiter, but like the pieces fit and it shows that he has a grasp of what's on his team, what he needs to do to make those people tick, and he did it, and he's getting out of the way of some of these coaches and letting them do what makes them special assistants too.
I mean, it's easier too when you become a minor league NFL team and you're just pulling coaches from the Ravens.
That's true.
For sure. But you look at a lot of coaches that, and it's definitely a special circumstance, but how many coaches can take people from the NFL and have them be coaches that are going to agree to make that move and B, have what they do in the NFL translate to college, because so many of these college programs, I mean, even Ohio State, like, hey, they kill it in colleges, but you look at some of their players that excel at the college level and they're not necessarily doing it at the pro level because there's a huge difference in like lexicon and like how intense these programs are and these playbooks are, and the fact that Jim Harbaugh's created a culture and in a situation here where, hey, we're going to succeed because the opposing defenses aren't going to know what we're going to do because there's so many layers, there's so much depth to what we're doing, and we're just going to be better prepared than they are. And so this program can benefit more from NFL styles coming down and not just trickling up, because it's sort of a more nuanced operation.
Well, and I think about it too because Penn State last weekend had Manny Diaz as their D coordinator, who has obviously didn't perform as a head coach, but he's been a hell of a defensive coordinator in his career, and we ran for 400 yards on him. Whereas Jim Harbaugh has the Vanderbilt defensive coordinator, and nobody ever has said Vanderbilt and good football team in the same sentence. And
I did, but they were 5-0, just to be corrected there.
All right. Yeah.
And sorry. I did, but it was sarcastic. So
two people.
All right. There you go. Scott Bell and sarcasm. I
was trying something new.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Yeah. I mean, that right there to me is like, it's more than just the people that he's getting. It's buying in. It's getting somebody that's not like, maybe the statistical best person out there. It's getting the right fit for your program, right? And so that's where I think Jim Harbaugh has been so different in the last 2 seasons versus the first, 5, whatever, 6, whatever you want to call it there. And that's where I'm proud of him. Like, I know that he's probably very, excited to hear that Justin Rowe is proud of him. And he does listen. So he's a weekly listener, he tells me. So
cool.
Yeah, very exciting. So yeah, man, I think it's pretty sweet where we're at.
All right, cool.
What?
Oh, Jim Harbaugh?
He's Michigan's head coach.
Oh no, shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Baseball.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Baseball coach.
What do you think? Is he good?
Seems all right. Let's.
Yeah.
I mean, have you heard of Don Brown? He's almost that good.
Guy.
Almost.
Listen, Don. He gets too many shots at him. He's such a nice person, but like you just have to. I actually was told a story about 2018 Ohio State game that is going to infuriate every Michigan fan listening to this, where there was like a fight between some coaches on the field because everyone's like telling him like, hey, they're stealing our calls. They know everything that we're running right now on defense. And he was just like, nope, we're doing it. We're doing it.
We're solving our problems with aggression.
Yeah. And then, 62 points later, it's just not that great.
That solve the problems with aggression clip is incredible.
Listen, the clips that they put on him, I was ready to
Ohio State, and I'd keep him as coach based on those clips alone.
All right. Let's talk about 2022, the game on October 29th, this Saturday. I am very excited. I don't know about you, Scott, but I am very excited for the Spartans to come to Ann Arbor.
I'm excited. There's a little bit of uneasiness just because there's a lot of receipts out there that I might have to. But I will say this: I don't hide from them, and I've eaten my fair of shit sandwiches in the aftermath of talking a big game and not having it.
Do you keep your own receipts? Like, do you keep receipts of other people that are talking, stuff about Michigan? And also, do you like send out a tweet and be like, I should probably bookmark that because somebody's going to come back on me?
Well, with the latter, there's no use, because if I say something dumb and it comes back to bite me, I won't need to point it out because there will be thousands of people ready to make me answer to that. How many people do you
think have your notifications on, like waiting for it?
Well, there's a difference between how many people and how many accounts, because I am convinced that like it very well could be. I mean, look at the stands in Spartan Stadium and how many empty seats there are, or how many Scarlet, like their MSU Twitter could be 12 guys for all I know, and it's just different computers, different everywhere. Like, so there's a difference between how many people and how many accounts. But I will have a lot to answer to if Michigan comes up short against Michigan State. But I do think you're going to see a focused Michigan State team. Like, I shouldn't be breaking any news, but like we all know how important this game is to him. Jaden Reed's healthy now. I think you're going to see a lot of jump balls to him, and I think you're going to see him come down with some of them. Yeah. It will probably be a little 2022 or 2020 PTSD with Ricky White or whatever the hell his name was. But I do think just hearing Michigan all season long and in their focus, I would be surprised if Michigan loses, and I'd be surprised if it's relatively close. I know that might be a receipt that ends up back in my face, but Michigan's team has been focused, and you hear them even in the off season, they're saying state, like they're talking about Ohio State and Michigan State. And I think a lot of the criticism of Michigan in the past years was, hey, you're not focusing on Ohio State enough. You're not focusing on Ohio State enough. Last year, you saw that focus on Ohio State, and they got over the hump. This year, they're largely lumping those two schools in together. And
can I give you a little tidbit too?
I love tidbits.
They get a reward for every time they beat a state team. Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State.
I like that.
They're definitely. I agree with you. It's not just like last year was a beat Ohio thing, right? But now it's like the state teams are it for us.
And you should carry, and whatever it is that's going to motivate you, whether like it's embarrassment, like you're sick of hearing about Michigan State, and even like last year you had this great season, and I talked a little bit about how it really didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but it probably would have been a lot cooler to have a 0 at the end of your record, and it probably would be cooler to not have to hear about jawing from Michigan State fans or players whenever you're on there, even though half of it's cell phones. It's still like you got to get past this whole Michigan State hump, and it looked like the program had sort of gotten by it when it was the end of the Mark D'Antonio era. Like you mentioned, Michigan retired Mark D'Antonio, and you kind of got that in the rear view, and then all of a sudden you're sort of restarting this. And we can get into flukes, bad calls, or whatever, but the fact of the matter is Mel Tucker's been here for 2 seasons, and Michigan State's won 2 games. And if you're really going to, we were just talking about Michigan being in that top 5 program nationally sort of echelon, you don't see the other 4 teams in there losing to inferior teams on an annual basis. So that this is kind of the last little non-elite program thing Michigan needs to put behind itself to sort of take that step up into sort of the big boys table.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And to me, it's gotta be like statement. statement type win. You said, you'd be shocked if it's close. I agree with you. Do you feel the same way where like even if it's a 3-score game in the third quarter, like let's throw the ball?
Absolutely. And I think Jim Harbaugh has that in him too.
Me too.
We don't see backslap Jim as much anymore, but I think it's in there, and I think he's probably pretty annoyed of the things he's heard and some of the stuff Michigan State's done and its branding and its celebration and stuff. I don't think Michigan just wants to beat Michigan State. I think Michigan wants to put its little brother back in its place. All narratives or stereotypes aside, like this is a game where Michigan really wants to take care of business, and that's more than just walking away with a win.
I like it. I gotta pee. Can you guys keep it going?
I'll be honest, I don't have much.
You don't have much pee or much to talk about?
I know you like to talk, Justin, so I know you got.
I have been talking a lot. That's why I was hoping that you guys would have a couple things to say.
I thought we had a great little spot here. I got nothing. I'm here for the show. I'm here for the entertainment.
All right, Kaylin, take it away.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
We can also edit this. I'm definitely gonna edit this part because I gotta edit out Rose fucking idiocy.
I know one thing, like we were talking about the coaches coming from the Ravens. I'm waiting for that like Michigan Ravens crossover merch. Like that could be sweet.
Dude, I've seen some sweet stuff on TikTok where they'll like dye the shirt. Like obviously you see like jerseys and stuff that like people like merge together, like Stafford with the Rams and Lions, but like do a little tie-dye thing. Get like a Michigan Ravens or like Baltimore Wolverines or something, and have like one side be purple and one side be blue.
I was just thinking the Ravens head with a Michigan helmet on it or something.
Yeah, but then we get
be a market for that. You could have at least 3 people buy it every year, whether it's a Michigan player drafted or signing on as an undrafted free agent. They'll at least sign up for that.
It'd be great.
I will say,
at the draft.
All right, so I will say, you've talked about receipts, Scott. We did this was very early in our podcast.
God, I know this. That's why I'm like being very quiet right now.
2020 season. We who did we have on with
Burns? We had Burns,
Matt Burns, and he
viral.
Yeah, we all were, which I think everybody. I mean, we're
nothing, baby.
23. We were 23-point favorites, right? Whatever it was, and we posted this clip before the game, being all of our score predictions, which was we're gonna kick their ass, we're gonna go nuts, this is gonna be the beatdown of all time, blah blah blah, and then it went viral after the fact, just every single Spartan. Honestly, I think half of that was part of why we became popular, which we'll take it, but that part of me where I think you said it at the beginning of the pod where you're a little bit of uneasiness, that is down deep for me. It's there for sure.
I do radio with Sam Webb and Ira Weintraub every Monday, and 2020 was the first year I did it, and the 30 minutes that Sam and I had on the Monday before the Michigan State game was just I thought it was like a dunk contest on a 6-foot rim. We were just going left and right, and I'm like, oh, this is great. So that's tamed me down a little bit. But again, you feel it, you say it, and you own it. And if you don't say something stupid, if you have a microphone in front of you for 2 years, you're probably incredibly boring. So
yeah,
you ask any person going into that 2020 game that thought something other than Michigan blowing out Michigan State was going to happen, and you're either going to you're talking to either an idiot or a liar, because that was the game that Michigan was just going to blow the doors off Michigan State. Didn't Michigan State lose to Rutgers in the season opener?
They did.
Yeah.
So
and we had Cameron Mahomes playing quarterback. So
Michigan was coming off a road win over a top 25 team.
Yeah.
So that, like I said, that game bothers me because like that's just a bad team. Like Michigan against Michigan State last year, that was 2 top 10 teams playing. Michigan was on the road. Michigan was the better team. Michigan should have won that game. Michigan should not have blown that game. There were some
Even
calls
with how
that
bad
bothered.
they were that
Yeah.
year. Like Michigan still should win that game.
Yeah, it's just a completely the 2 years are just completely different in terms of the hurt scale. But if Michigan is a 7-0 team, a top 10 or a top 5 team, a team that's going to be in the playoff in the first set of rankings, if they lose to a 3-4 Michigan State team, like that is going to be just the stomach punch of all stomach punches.
I wonder a little bit. Listen, I don't want to speak this into existence, so I don't want to take too much time on it. But like, I like that to me is like, I just talked up Jim Harbaugh for about a half hour, but like, I would have some questions. I think I would have some questions. Are those questions valid?
I probably wouldn't have questions because you'd be peeling me off the bottom of a concrete thing because I would have hurled myself off the biggest building I could find in Dallas. But if like you lose 3 straight games, where your program is right now, and again, like I'm talking about, I think we're all in agreement that this is like a team that's on the doorstep of being elite.
Yeah.
But if you, for 3 straight years, lose to an inferior team, an inferior program, where we are far beyond the point where we can say Michigan State snuck up on Michigan. Like everyone knows what Michigan is going to face this game. So if Michigan can't get the job done against Michigan State this year, then we're going to be having some conversations. But I really hope that's not the case.
Yeah, me too. And I don't think it is. I think that there are a lot of guys on this team that last year did not sit well with them. They had that hour bus ride home was felt like 24 straight hours. And I think these guys are way too focused to let it happen. Again, we're talking before the game and you just never know what'll happen, but it definitely feels like there's just a different mindset there. So
are you calling out Hutchinson? Do you think he wasn't focused enough before the game?
No, I'm not.
That's what it kind of sounded like. I'm just
Aiden, if you're listening, I think I could take down Aiden for sure. Me and him, very similar strength. Very similar strength.
I mean, can he get buckets like you? I don't know.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not.
He doesn't have the touch. He doesn't have the touch around the rim.
He's too rough.
Yeah. All right. I was just gonna say give a score prediction. I'm not even gonna say it. I don't want to. I don't want to.
I think Michigan wins by double digits. But I mean the line, or at least when we're having this conversation, I don't think I've seen a line. Like I feel like Michigan's going to be a double-digit favorite, and my advice for anyone will be take Michigan State in the points, just because I don't know if I've been hurt so much by the past or whatever, but it feels like a game Michigan's going to win. I don't think it's going to come down to the wire, but I know what we're going to get out of Michigan State, and I think you have to have a healthy respect for them in this game at least.
I agree with that. And listen, the thing is, I've said this for the past few weeks. I'm pretty sure for the past 4 weeks, Michigan State has just been prepping for Michigan. They've said
without a question,
fuck every game plan against Wisconsin and Ohio State and whatever it was. They've just said you know what, we're game prepping for Michigan. And I honestly, it's a good move if you're Mel Tucker to do that, because that, to your point earlier, Scott, that is what the fan base cares about. So
that guy beats Michigan on the 29th. Michigan State goes 6-6, and they will probably give him a new contract and a gold-plated throne at the 50-yard line at Spartan Stadium.
That's accurate. That is very accurate. So, but it ain't gonna happen. So That's what I'm going out on. I'm excited. I'm so happy it's a night game too, so that they can get Michigan fans at their rowdiest. I know, Michigan fans get a certain rep, but I will say, I know, Scott, you haven't been to the Big House in a while, have you?
Look, it's been a little bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, due to your location. But last Saturday against Penn State, like it felt different. It felt more like Ohio State, Michigan 2021 than it did in other games. And so that's where I think like people will be ready to go. People will be ready to go for sure.
You're not going to have to talk anyone up into that stadium to be excited for this one, whether they're wearing green or whether they're wearing blue. And hopefully we're looking at a lot of people in blue for that one.
I love it. I love it. The blue out, the unofficial official blue out.
Jack's sending us out here.
Hold on.
What do you got?
Hold on. I got an ad.
Yeah.
I've got broke YouTube. I'm sorry.
He's so ready to have it be the moment.
Freaking DT. Kaylin, we got to get on that thing that you guys were talking about.
I love it. I love it.
Perfect.
The people can't hear it though. You got to put it back by the mic. There you go.
Okay. Go now.
All right, Scott. Tell the people where to follow you at.
I am on Twitter at sbell021. Come talk to me unless you're a Michigan State fan and Michigan State pulls off the upset, and then just spare me a couple weeks of headaches. But also have a newsletter, scottbell.substack.com. You can also just Google Scott Bell newsletter, and it's the first thing that comes up. And it's not so much the humor Twitter type stuff. It's a little more serious breakdowns, analysis of football team in season, and then other Michigan sports outside of it. So that's about it.
All right. Perfect. I've been a follower for a long time, even before Blue by 90. So it's been fun to have you on here. We appreciate it, man. And I personally am looking forward to, some very fun tweets on October 30th. So and October 29th as well. So hopefully it goes well. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube and blueby90.com. Scott, leave us with some wisdom.
Have fun. Don't take the rivalry too seriously. It really can be a toxic 2 weeks, but it can be a fun 2 weeks too. So enjoy it. Keep watching or keep listening to these guys. They do a great job, and thanks for having me.
All right. Go Blue.
Go Blue.